Hi all! Everything in my video is pulled from the public domain, and I am using them under the Fair Use, Fair Dealings guidelines. Everything I say is my own opinion. You should look into this information for yourselves, but I'm pretty sure I'm right. Good morning, everybody. I have been out and about, which is why my hair is a flyaway disaster. Been running around. So much has happened today. It's insanity, all the stories that are suddenly coming out. So we have a lot to cover. So let's just jump in and get there, shall we? Let's go. For our obligatory photo, we have from the latest in space on Twitter, a new image of Jupiter from the James Webb telescope. Now this features 2 moons, 2 rings, and distant galaxies. For those who are interested, here's the annotated version that shows you where everything is. Is that not, I just love these kinds of photos that are coming out now. I just think they're fabulous. All right, let's keep moving on to our stories for today. To add on to our story from yesterday, we know that Kate arrived in Scotland with her children after flying economy. We all saw the photos. Actually, it was not all 3 kids. George was not there. He flew separately with William. So it wasn't long after that of course, Charles was spotted there. Of course, he's going to be there with the grandkids and his mother. Yeah. And then, of course, later on, we saw Lady Louise. She was there with her dad, Edward. They were driving in the car together. I just love that. The whole family's together. Moving on. All right, I just want to touch on this because somehow this doesn't surprise me. Apparently, Meghan is wanting her son to get preferential treatment at the school he's out, and he should be singled out as better than the other kids. She's unhappy that the teaching staff basically rebuffed her. So it's become a joke and passed around that nobody can believe her behavior because no child is treated differently or pushed as better than the others. And she's being, of course, is being insinuating that she's bribing higher ups, and she had a list of demands for all the staff to follow, and she made threats and name dropping and all this kind of stuff. Does that surprise me? No, doesn't. That's what's being alleged. All right, moving on. All right, next up, Jack Royston. He's another Omid Scobie wannabe. He put up an article that said William and Kate's new home is disgraceful while the cost of living is going up, etc., etc., etc. Here's what, again, he forgot to mention. Number 1, Adelaide College house was already there. Number 2, it didn't require any renovations of any kind. Number 3, they're only bringing with them the same amount of people they had before. So it's not costing the taxpayers anything for them to move into that house. But he wants you to think that it is. That's horrible. Moving on. All right. Another one that I gave you earlier, another story was how Harry was apparently following Mr. or Senator Coons and his wife around, going from place to place, doing the same things, showing him doing the same pictures, etc., etc. And everybody's wondering because Senator Coons hasn't mentioned Harry. There's no photos of Harry with them. What's going on? So it was this point that Unlikely Bot put up this information on Twitter. Apparently, New Times Rwanda, which is a news organization in Rwanda, said that Harry's spokesperson stated, who's probably Omid Scobie, that Harry's currently touring Africa with a group of U.S. officials. You know, like he's joined them. But actually, that's not true. Everywhere that they've gone, but he's gone days later. He's chasing them around. It's misinformation central. Moving on. All right, next up, supposedly these photos were leaked of Meghan on a Zoom call, and everybody noticed almost immediately the physical changes in her. Forget the curly hair. Her face is more narrow. She doesn't look like herself. You know what I mean? She looks obviously different. And people are wondering how that's possible. Well, that is possible. There's filters on these Zoom calls, just like there's filters. Like here where she was talking to James Corden, she was using, I think they said it was an Asian filter. I can totally believe that. It's all fakery, you guys. And I'm saying that because I agree with this. Meghan has everybody sign NDAs. They all sign NDAs. So nobody would, quote unquote, leak this without, somebody's approval. This has Meghan's name written all over it. It's obvious. These are stupid stunts. We all know what it is. This was done with her permission. I do believe that this was done because the press is covering Harry's trip in Africa and the Cambridges, and she wanted to be, noticed. I think it's too coincidental that her mother just happens to pop in and Archie just happens to pop in. They've even color corrected his hair for the photo. So please, we've already seen him. He doesn't have red hair. His hair is brown. And I must say, I agree with this user on Twitter who said, we don't do social media. Suddenly she has natural hair, makeup free, and her mom and son make an appearance. This is what everybody's been saying on social media. So obviously they have been looking at social media. All right, let's move on now to our main story of the day. All right, you guys, Archetypes finally dropped. They tried to do what's known as a shock drop. They didn't tell anybody. They just dropped it. Okay, so here's what happened. So as you can see, she's wearing an outfit, and once again, her shirt is unbuttoned down to where you can see some cleavage. It's like she feels that that's the way she needs to dress. Unbelievable. And then she says the following, and I'm quoting here. People should expect the real me in this, and probably the me that they've never gotten to know. Certainly not in the past few years where everything is through the lens of the media, as opposed to, hey, it's me. I'm just excited to be myself and talk and be unfiltered. And yeah, it's fun. Okay, and then she looks up and smiles at the camera. And what that is, in case you don't realize it, is that's her asking you to forget everything else. Just forget everything you've heard in the media about me and let me show you the real me. You're going to think I'm so wonderful and lovely. Yeah, I don't think so. And of course, she used her Duchess title again to promote the project. Who's not surprised by that one? So I'm guessing we shouldn't have been surprised, but her very first guest was Serena Williams. And of course, the first thing that Meghan talks about is her Palmolive, letter, the story from when she wrote to the people about the hand washing liquid when she was 11 years old. How many times have we heard that story? That's the first thing out of her mouth. And of course, we are now all aware, thanks to the Tom Bower book, that the only reason she was interviewed was because her dad called in some favors over at Nickelodeon, that her letter made no change whatsoever, that she never got a response from anybody. We already know that her entire perception of this is built on a lie that was done by her father. And she takes no opportunity to not slam the royal family and turn the conversation back to her. So the first thing she talks about after the Palmolive oil, hand whatever, is she talks about how much she loves the nanny because the nanny was African from Zimbabwe, and she would tie Archie to her back with a mud cloth and carry him around, and we just love that. She's pointing out that she's part of the African community. Then she goes on to say the nursery caught fire and there was no smoke detector and somebody smelled smoke. Was Archie in the nursery at the time? Absolutely not. But she says, we're all in tears. As a mother, you're like, oh my God, what could have happened? What could have happened? Of course, nothing happened. And then she says, can't we just tell people what happened? And no, with the royal family, we had to go out and we had to give our best and we had to leave him again and move to another place and go do another engagement. It's just horrible. So then she takes the opportunity, boom, to slam the royal family again. So I have not listened to the podcast, nor will I listen to it, but this is what I was told, that Meghan Markle is the one who's talking the most, that she asks Serena just a few questions, tells Serena what Serena is feeling, and then starts talking about herself, her trials, takes the dig at the royals, talks about her own heroism, and she's claiming apparently in this that her ambition to date Harry is what has held her back. That Serena was always applauded for going after her tennis tiles, but criticized for her tantrums. That came from Naomi Sky 15, and I completely agree with that. Angela Levin said that Meghan and Serena giggled away and there was lots of oh my goshes. And then Meghan encouraged Serena to complain about how a woman is held back and how they're victims. You just can't make it up. And of course, it's coming out in the news that, it's a mixed response because it's the same story, different day. Oh, I wrote a letter when I was 11, about this sexist commercial. And then, of course, we all found out how that happened, what happened with her dad stepping in. But, it's the same old thing over and over again. Basically what she said was she didn't remember feeling the negative connotation behind the word ambitious until she started dating her, quote, now husband. She doesn't even call him by his name. He's her, quote, now husband. Now, you can be ambitious and still uphold a moral code. That's what Serena Williams did. Serena Williams has ambition, but she doesn't lie and trample over others and bully people to get there. That's the difference. And I hate to point this out, but she just basically admitted to everybody that her ambition was to hook Harry. I'm telling you, people. All right, as far as the fire goes, had there really been a fire in that nursery, we would have heard about it. Come on, guys. There's no way that would have stayed private if that had actually happened. I also have to say I'm a little concerned that they supposedly were using a heater in South Africa when it was hot as crap. Why would she need a heater in that instance? That makes no sense to me. Now, one of my followers is from Cape Town, and she sent me an email and said that she lives there and they don't use heaters in September because it's too hot, and points out the fact that Harry and Meghan were in summer clothes the whole time. One more tiny little bit of information. Their tour started in Cape Town. They were not in the kind of housing, they were talking about. They stayed at the High Commissioner's house, which, as you can see, has a thatched roof with visiting royalty. So if there was a fire of any kind, smoke, anything, any little thing, you don't think that the fire department wouldn't have responded? And if they had, we would have heard about it. This is just another lie. Now, if they were staying at the house that you see above, I refuse to believe that there were no smoke detectors in that house, because in 1999, that house burned down and had to be rebuilt. And you're going to tell me that they rebuilt it and didn't put in smoke detectors? I don't think so. And that goes for whether they were already at this big house or if they were in some other base that they were not rushed from. And a big thank you to Megan Malarkey for pointing this out. Archie was not in his room when the fire happened. Again, remember, there was no fire. The heater smoked. There was no fire. If there had been a fire, fire trucks would have shown up and we all would have heard about it. And let me just say, as far as Serena Williams goes, Serena Williams is ambitious, but she worked hard to get where she is. Nobody gave it to her. She worked for it. And I don't recall anybody calling Serena Williams names. Could somebody please show me where Serena Williams was called a name or told that she was a horrible woman because she worked hard to become one of the best tennis players in the world? Because that is really what this is all about. So, ladies and gentlemen, what I think this is yet another vanity project. It's all about her. She's talking about her. It's another pity me conversation. It's self-centered all the time. It never ends. This is just another self-indulgent trip. This is really getting to be very old and pathetic. That's my personal opinion. She never had any intentions, from what I can tell, to blend in with the royal family. This just looks terrible. The whole optics are terrible. And now next week, apparently, it's going to be Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey, who was signed to a recording contract at 18 and who's been hugely successful. Somehow we're supposed to believe that she's been held back somehow. I can't. Now, thank you to Royal Terrier for pointing this out. Spotify has another podcast called Archetypes. And it looks like Megan fashioned her Archetype podcast off of this one. So it's still available. You can still see it. And Archetypes podcast, this one, the original one, looks like it might be something worth listening to if you guys really want to see something. Now, you should know that look at the long list of people who had to have a hand in this podcast because Megan was unable to do it on her own. And that's why Spotify hired in people to produce this. And I got to tell you something. It went on August 22nd. It went up at 8:35 p.m. And 8 hours later, it only had 665 likes. So it looks like Spotify wasted their money and has yet alienated even more people. And in case you can't count, that's 3 production companies, 6 executive producers, 6 other producers, and over 20 months to come up with this dribble. Now, we all know that Serena Williams was on, Better Up with Harry, and then Serena's husband had Megan on. They're good friends. They're trying to help each other. Now, we know the next one is going to be Mariah Carey. Who here wants to take a guess that Megan's going to play the identity crisis card, aka the race card, and we're all going to have to hear all about that again as if we haven't already heard all of this. I mean, guys, I mean, it's predictable. We all know what's going to happen. We all know what's going to be said. It's more of the pity party. It's more of the victim narrative. At what point do we throw up our hands and say, my God, it's enough already? Now, I want to say one more thing about that fire, because let me tell you where I'm going with this. I believe, as Akua on Twitter said, Harry and Meghan are laying the foundation to accuse the royal family and the British establishment of trying to harm their son because supposedly he's African. That's why on their visit to South Africa, they were housed in a quote-unquote housing unit with no smoke detectors, with a heater in the middle of summer that Meghan admits she bought herself, and it caught fire, and their son could have been killed. There you go. That's my honest thought. And we already know they were not in a council house. They were in that huge house with the thatched roof. And in the event that any of you are thinking, oh no, she's not trying to make the Sussex squad think that, absolutely not. That's not true. I mean, it's so predictable. Let's say this and then let's claim that we're like Diana and we were made to leave the baby after his room caught fire because we had something to do. We had to leave our child. She's doing another Diana thing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And of course, the Sussex squad is completely ignoring the fact that the offending heater that supposedly smoked and caught fire was one that she brought. It was not provided by anybody. She brought it with them. Well, it did not take long for the reviews to start to come out, and the reviews were not good. The newspapers are giving it 1 star. Yeah. Unbelievable. Well, people had a lot to say about this. C. Beasley said, "Hi, Serena. Welcome to my podcast. Now let me tell you about my victimhood. Spot on." Mary Lorenz pointed out that a space heater smoking does not translate to the room being on fire. Good grief. And Mona pointed out that maybe she just felt like his room was on fire. Now you guys should know that at the same time that they shock dropped this podcast, for the first time in months, they updated the Archewell website, and they unveiled an updated web page under Archewell Audio. Now, this is where it gets interesting. What they're asking people to do is to tell their stories to her. And as I told you before on a different video, be careful, because anything that you upload to their website, any idea becomes theirs. You have no legal recourse. They're not going to pay you. They're just going to take your idea if they like it and make money off of it, okay? But they want you to show them how it impacted your life and take action. So, of course, now we're sitting back to see where on the Spotify rankings it comes in. We know that the last podcast she did with Harry came in behind Sleep Sounds for Whales. It didn't even make it into the top 5. I don't think this one will either. But I think Spotify feels like whatever they've done in that contract, Spotify can't get out of it. They can't get their money back. And so they're gonna squeeze every bit out of Megan that they can, even if this stuff is a flop. My goodness, you guys. A lot of information, a ridiculous amount of information. I really need you guys to leave your comments because, I mean, my head is like hurting from trying to put this one together. Like, seriously. All right, leave those comments below. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell to be notified of notifications when I upload a video. Don't forget to double check if you've already hit the button to make sure that you haven't been unsubscribed, okay? Don't forget you can follow me on Twitter, Getter, Rumble. You can email me. For those of you who have donated to my coffee fund and through the thanks button, thank you so much. And as always, you guys, have a great day.